GM, back from my trip, got down a decent amount of action during the Divisional Round weekend, so figured we could recap it here. Pick'ems, Battle Royale lineups, playoff best ball teams, all of that good stuff. It's the portfolio review. I'm Pete. Let's do it.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atropic chalkitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust out AP, 35 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Hey everyone, GMs, the Cash King returns. Burritozet. Yes, I was did a weekend in California with my buddies. This is an annual trip. We do Divisional Round weekend, and flew out to San Diego. And my ritual there is, you guys have heard, I've fallen in love with California burritos when I went to school in San Diego. So my move is, I housed 2 California burritos on Thursday night when I landed. And then we were driving from San Diego to Palm Springs for the weekend. And then I had a breakfast burrito for good measure in the morning. So I did 3 burritos within a 12-hour span. And I think that was enough. I filled myself up. My burrito cup overfloweth here. GMs all around. Burrito pour. Yeah, all I have is coffee, unfortunately. Yes, KZ, I loved your state. Palm Springs treated me very well. I am still in a bit of a haze. I'm so old and washed up that like the red eye just wrecks me. So I got in early yesterday morning, went to take a nap before XM, and I slept through my alarm. Luckily, Lauren knew that I had XM at 11 and came up and was like, yeah, what are you doing? It woke me up. So I frantically ran down to my computer to get on XM with like 1 minute to spare. So yeah, we're struggling, we're fighting, but I thought, you know what? Played enough on Underdog, ended up getting 100+ drafts in, had a ton of pick'ems. You know, my buddies were wanting me to build pick'ems all weekend. And of course, our playoff best ball team. So I said, you know what? We got to fire up a portfolio review here. And of course, before we can do any of that, we need to get the coffee poured, the ducks fed, all of that good stuff. Where are you, ducks? Ducks. There's my ducks. And as usual, I do not have much in my coffee pot. April was up incredibly early this morning, so I have already downed most of my allotment, but I did save a little for you guys. Hopefully I can deliver on the coffee pour. Honestly, that was a better pour than I was expecting. I had just a little bit more coffee in there than I thought. I think I delivered on that pour. I think it's that's what I got to do. I just have to under promise and over deliver on the pours here. Did I go to the American Express? No, I didn't. Yeah, I did see Karain. I hung out with Karain on Thursday night. Invited him over to my buddy's house where I was staying. So I got to see Karain on Thursday. He's alive and well. The self-proclaimed king of San Diego. No, I don't think he's calling himself that quite yet. But yeah, it was good to see Pat out there in San Diego. We get the stamp of approval on the terrific pour. We got the coffee and duck emojis going. Chunk the Deuce says, man, it's been months since that pour. I may have to make an impromptu bathroom break. There you go. I'm sorry I've been shortchanging you guys on the pour. You know, we're just, we're all winding down here this season. Let's see. Where should we start? I say we start with Battle Royales. I ran so pure in that I had my cross-country flight, Boston to San Diego. It's like a 6-hour flight, and it's always kind of hit and miss. If you can draft on the plane. We were talking about this on the show on, we recorded that Wednesday, or was it Thursday? I can't remember, whatever. But people were like, no, you're not going to be able to draft on the plane. guys, I was able to draft on the plane. I don't know if that was influencer, VPN, or whatever, but I was just refreshing and boom. So I just ripped so many Battle Royale drafts. And then we had Numi and Hope that just kept putting more and more contests in the lobby. And because I was also on East Coast time, you know, I'm waking up super early there because my body clock's on East Coast time. And so I just hop in the lobby and I'd be like, oh my God, Numi and Hope added another contest. Might as well draft this while everyone else is sleeping. So ended up getting some pretty good volume down last weekend, although no big scores per se. Let me go to my results tab. I'll get this pulled up so we can start to check out how we did this week. Head over to NFL. Where are we? Divisional round here. So yeah. Looks like we had one of my battle royales thrown out because I was very OCD and had 99 entries. I thought I had 100. I now see I had 99. That's one of the risks for us OCD bros is you get the contest thrown out and then you don't hit that perfect round number that you were hoping to hit with your entries. I think it'd be fascinating. I don't know how many of you guys are like me with that, like wanting an even number for your entries outside of the ones that have a cap. You know, the third and short was max 4 entries or whatever. But it'd be really funny. You should try this. Numi and Hope, if you're listening, do an 11 max contest or something like that where the number is just a really awkward one and see how many people do 10 instead of 11. I think that would be fascinating and just find out just how OCD are you. Would you rather max the contest or would you rather have that beautiful round number sitting in your live entries? Yeah. Motherfucking drafts on the motherfucking plane. Literally landed the plane. Yeah, we were pushing the plane. We were driving the plane. All that good stuff. So let's see here. Battle Royale. Looks like my best finish was in 166th place. Let's first check out the winning lineup. I'm in such a fog right now that I need to be reminded what won. Pretty interesting that you didn't need Lamar or Josh Allen. I think that's just because Christian McCaffrey ended up, when you did like the 2v2s of like a running back quarterback from round 1 versus getting Baker in the last round, the CMC Baker pairing ended up being much better. So the winning lineup had a Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans stack. That makes sense. Christian McCaffrey, this person got him at pick 102. I did see that happening a couple times because people would want to take the quarterbacks. So you could get McCaffrey 102 and Amon-Ra 103 sometimes. Travis Kelce, obviously the optimal tight end, finally puts up a score worthy of being, you know, a second or third round pick. And then gets Rachaad White, who was kind of, for me, the last of the good running back tier. I didn't mind taking shots on, you know, David Montgomery, Justice Hill. I was clicking those guys a lot. But Rachaad White, the volume's just always there. And then Khalil Shakur as the one-off late piece there. So yeah, just the kind of unconventional Baker double, Baker, Rachaad White, Mike Evans. Although maybe that's not even fair saying unconventional, considering that those two have been the focal point of the offense. Trey Palmer said he woke up pissed off, but apparently not pissed off enough to score a touchdown. Congratulations to Adam Foster 99. I know TD King, I saw him post this one on Twitter. Shout out to him for finishing in 5th place here with the Baker, Mike Evans, Cade Otton. So the more conventional double stack, Romeo Dobbs is his version of Khalil Shakur, and then Jahmyr Gibbs here instead of Rachaad White. So the big difference here just being the Kelce separation, Kelce getting up to 22 points at the tight end, but otherwise a very nice lineup here. DK Dub hit 20th in VR. Very nice. Let's find you here. There you are. DK Dub. Ooh, going the double tight end in a skinny stack with Baker. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. I will say, I think I did a few Baker, Mike Evans skinny stacks, but I was kind of always working under the assumption, like if Baker's the optimal quarterback, he's bringing someone else along for the ride. Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, Amon-Ra, Mike Evans, and then Isaiah Likely as the flex. So it was kind of fun, like considering, you know, this was a smaller slate only 4 games, 8 teams, just scanning through these top lineups, seeing that there was a decent amount of variation. I guess the one constant was needing Baker. Baker was, I thought, one of the best clicks. I wrote him up on Fantasy Life in my Hidden Gems piece. We talked about it on Off and On the Clock, where you basically had 2 quarterbacks who weren't getting drafted in the majority of contests because 6 were getting drafted, and Baker and Jordan Love were kind of the odd man out. I think Jared Goff was kind of sometimes getting mixed in. It was a weird quarterback slate. Like, you were doing those drafts, people were very much at, like, once Lamar and Josh Allen were gone, everyone was pushing quarterback. I mean, like, Jared Goff was readily available in the 5th round. You could get Brock Purdy a lot of times in the 4th round, especially if you kind of bullied the room with some early 49ers selections. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun slate as far as kind of going overweight on those quarterbacks. I'll show you how my exposure shook out here. I did want to go overweight on the 3 quarterbacks who weren't getting drafted in 100%. Obviously, I should have tilted the scales a little bit more towards Baker. I tilted it a little bit more to Jordan Love. For the audio listeners, I ended up at 22% Jordan Love, 17% Jared Goff, 15% Mayfield, 15% Brock, 12% Allen, Lamar, 10%. And then I was purposefully underweight Stroud and Mahomes. Those were the guys who I didn't think projected much better than Goff, Mayfield, Love. But we're still getting drafted in 100% of contests. So feel good about the process on that. Basically kind of trying to match the field. I ended up slightly underweight Allen and Jackson because I knew I wanted to go heavy there, but really just the big fades on Stroud and Mahomes, and then going heavy on those 3 guys who weren't getting drafted. Tight end, I ended up having the nut tight end as my top exposure there. Travis Kelce, 17%, was fairly heavy on Schultz. Some of this stuff ended up being swapped to. I did have 8% Mark Andrews, so ended up getting a little extra Likely, a little extra Schultz, and some extra Otten there after the swap. Had 12% George Kittle, which also worked out, 12% Otten. So outside of the Schultz, my top 4 tight end exposures were pretty good there. Kincaid, Likely, Sam Laporta. Was trying to mix in some Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft because those guys weren't getting drafted. Yeah, my exposures were honestly pretty good. When I look at these top plays, I ended up running pretty pure on 101s or kind of McCaffrey slipping. I had 18.7% McCaffrey. My most drafted running back, 32% Gibbs. Cook obviously ended up being a bust at his price. I had 23.7% of him, and then 14.4% Rachaad White. So pretty decent running back exposures there. The thing that killed me was the wide receivers. I was good on Mike Evans. He was my most drafted at 28%. He looked like one of the most mispriced guys across kind of everything. You were looking at the pick'ems. I think because he wasn't in great form in the past couple weeks, he had a couple of those drops. And I think maybe the pendulum swung too far of people being nervous about Mike Evans, but I was clicking him, basically never letting him leave the 1st round in drafts. But it was the Niners stuff that killed me here. 28% Brandon Ayuk, 21% Debo, 21% Jayden Reed, and then I'm down in the Godwin, Amon-Ra, Jameson, Nico. So there are actually a ton of wide receiver landmines as I kind of tab through all of this. But overall, like how I built the portfolio, felt decent about. Let's see, 2nd and long, looks like I had a min cash on one of these, a 36th place team. It's sad when we got to review the min caches here. This was a Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans skinny stack, Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. But then you see here the Brandon Ayuk, Jayden Reed just sinks you, Isaiah Likely at tight end. Over in the 3rd and short, another min cache here. Another Baker to, this was a triple. And this is kind of the fun thing about having these different contest sizes. So with a 456 person contest, I actually thought like a triple stack here, or sorry, I'm trying to justify that I did this myself. It was a swap. This was a Mark Andrews that got swapped to Cade Otton. So it ends up being a triple stack. I did intentionally do, I want to say, a triple stack in, I thought I did in one of these smaller ones. But yeah, this one ends up being an unintentional one with the swap. Baker, Evans, Godwin, Otten, Debo, Gibbs. Yeah, so the Debo and Ayuk stuff, man, Davis and I battling it out. Who's the more optimal pick? Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel. The correct answer was neither of them, although Debo ran pretty poor, leaving the game early with an injury there. Wow. We've hit the end of the season when we have sub polls going. OCD poll. Do you always tip an even amount, or do you tip so your total is an even dollar amount? I tip on the even dollar amount. Yeah, so I'm always doing the round numbers there, 5, 10, 15, 20. Because the former requires far too much math. Like if your bill is 63, 73, and you're trying to do like, okay, if I do 27 cents, I can't deal with that. It's funny though, because I feel like now, whether you're doing it at an automated machine or some of the receipts now will just tell you 15% is this amount, 20% is this amount. It's kind of like GPS, right? Where we've just all used it as a crutch. You barely even have to do the math anymore these days. They just do it for you. What the hell happened to Jayden Reed? Yeah, I honestly hadn't looked into it that much. I kind of want to go to the Fantasy Life utilization report now that you say it, and see what was going on with his underlying utilization there. I know, the game against the Cowboys, they were running all those 2 tight end sets. They didn't need him on the field a ton. But let's see here. In week 20, which was the divisional round, his routes were way up. He was back from 52% to 74%, which was even higher than his season average. 15% targets per route run, 12% targets. They were just pretty spread out there. Like if we look at, let's do just week 20 here. So Dobbs was still earning targets at a good clip, 18%. Watson back in the mix. I think the issue is just like they're so deep. And when they have Christian Watson back in the offense, when they have both tight ends going, and you have guys like Bo Melton and Dontavian Wicks out here running the routes, it's just harder for anyone to consolidate the targets. I mean, what kind of targets were the tight ends earning here? Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. I mean, look at their targets per route run. Luke Musgrave, 31%, Tucker Kraft, 22%. So the tight ends are earning targets. And then they're even using Ben Sims. Hand builders down bad because Ben Sims is out here also earning targets at a pretty high rate. Only 6% of the routes, but earning targets whenever he's out there at a 50% clip. So to me, I think that's just the thing. They're so multiple and have so many weapons that Jayden Reed wasn't able to kind of consolidate targets in the way he was during that stretch when there was a bunch of injuries. Wicks banged up, Christian Watson out of the lineup, Luke Musgrave not playing. But I will say, if you want a silver lining, I think it helps us get a slightly more palatable price on Jayden Reed in 2024 drafts. Obviously, everyone is going to like Jayden Reed, but I think there's a meaningful difference. If Jayden Reed goes nuts in those 2 games against the Cowboys and the Niners, I legit think it's like a 1.5 round premium on his ADP. The way recency bias works, I think, and now people kind of look around at this Packers team. Everyone is bought into Jordan Love, right? So we're going to roll into the season next year, and people are going to, be thinking, I could just pass on Jayden Reed here. I can get Dontavian Wicks in the 14th. I can get Bo Melton in the 17th. I don't know. That's me trying to cope and say we're going to get discounted Jayden Reed because I'm very excited to draft him this year. Let's go back here. I don't know if there was anything else too interesting to look at in the Battle Royale streets. Just appreciate the crew over there at Underdog giving us so many fun contests. I'm personally not as enamored with 2-game contests. It's just not my thing. I've never been the primetime Palooza guy. I really like when there's a ton of options. So my volume will probably be scaled back this week. So I wanted to go hard on this one last week. So yeah, I loved it. We had the hurry up. We had a winner take all contest there as well. Just all kinds of fun contests. So again, shout out to the team for giving us all kinds of offerings. All right. Yeah. There was I was doing XM with Kendall yesterday, and she asked a question that was really hard. She said, who do you think is set up better for the future? The Green Bay Packers or the Houston Texans? I thought it was fascinating to kind of think through that. I think ultimately you got to side with Stroud, just how good he's looked in less than one season, and just kind of knowing that his probably toolbox is packed with more interesting things as he develops, and that the ceiling, I would say, is probably higher for him. But it is a pretty fun conversation. I don't know if you guys have any takes on that. Packers or Texans. Yeah, Texans, 77 mil in free agency money. They're going to be able to go out and do a lot. If they were able to like hit 2 on, say, like a Jahmyr Gibbs type in the draft, or a pretty exciting running back prospect, that could really supercharge things. Going to get Tank Dell back healthy, because I think the Packers definitely have more depth at wide receiver, but I think, the Nico Tank Dell combo, I don't think the Packers can match that just from a top 2. I think Schultz is a very, dare I say, cromulent tight end. But yeah, both of those teams are going to be very fun to buy in on next year. The Packers specifically, right? Because that is going to be, there's just so many ways. It'll probably be kind of similar to how the Ravens unfolded this year. They don't have a Mark Andrews guy who's going to command, a second or third round draft capital, but you're going to have your kind of choose your own adventure, as far as like the Rashad Bateman, the Zay Flowers, the Odell Beckham. Like, you're going to have a lot of different ways that you can attack that offense in drafts that'll keep all of the prices within check, I think, in a pretty fun way. Yeah, Stroud on that cheaper rookie contract, and they just because they had they had extended Love, or picked up the 5th year, but it's still, I think they have him locked up still for another 3 or 4 years. It's insane. So like we have the conference championship, then we have the bye week, and then the Super Bowl. And so I'll be out. I'm going to Arizona with Underdog to do some content and stuff during the Super Bowl week. And I believe that's when we'll do the first draft of the year. And it's just wild that we're already going to be talking about all of these teams and ADP values again. No rest for the weary here whatsoever. All right, what else did I want to check in? So I blasted off on Pick'ems. I basically, all my buddies, they wanted to have a 3-leg and a 5-leg for each of the games. So I was building these on the plane, and fortunately I did hit one really nice one with those guys. My core and my 5-leg for the Lions and Bucks game hit. So that was fun. We didn't ring the bell. I did get Chinese food after that, so we still celebrated here. But I hit him with a core of Jameson Williams higher than 34.5 yards. Holy cow, he gets 35 receiving yards, and he cleared it on, I think it was the last drive, or maybe second to last drive, one of the last possessions of the game. Jameson Williams gets there. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin rival. They were only spotting Chris Godwin like 8 or 9 yards here. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, only 6.5. So Mike Evans just absolutely dusted Chris Godwin, 147 to 46.5. And then I also did the Jahmyr Gibbs to Rachaad White. I had to get another crack at a Rachaad White rival after DeAndre Swift ruined our rival with him last Monday night on the Shipcast one. So this was the core, and then I hit that with the 5-leg and included Sam Laporta higher than 39.5 receiving yards. That hit, and then included Baker higher than 255.5 passing yards. That hit at 344. So that was fun to free roll all the pick'ems this weekend, getting that 20x hit on the Lions game there. Also had done another bet on a redacted site for higher than 36.5 passing attempts with my buddies, and they were enjoying sweating that. Pretty close call, but Baker does ultimately get there. I was pretty close to some other really big hits. So this was, I was just blasting off on some of these spices here. And I had 2 guys going into the final game where a Dalton Kincaid TD hits me 5 picks for 2,500, or a James Cook TD hits me 5 picks for almost 2K. And so I had hit Josh Reynolds spice, Jahmyr Gibbs spice, Baker Mayfield higher passing yards, and Mike Evans TD spice. And then all I needed was the James Cook touchdown to ship that one. And then on the other one, very similar core, Josh Reynolds spice, Mike Evans spice, Baker Mayfield higher passing yards, and Jared Goff higher passing yards, and then just needed a Dalton Kincaid spike. So I'm headed into that game, and thinking, if I just get one touchdown from either James Cook or Dalton Kincaid, I'm going to be cooking here. And no, Josh Allen cucked us at the goal line. James Cook was just getting rammed into the line, and they were not throwing much there in the second half. Pretty uninspired game plan there from the Bills. I thought I could do my best Liam impression, get the Dalton Kincaid TD, sail off into the sunset. Wasn't meant to be. Yeah, Bills letting everyone down. Pretty brutal there. Yeah, we had kind of like a roller coaster weekend of betting. We were in a complicated spot because one of my buddies is a hardcore Niner fan. He's from Northern California. So when we're doing kind of like our spread bets, we're always trying to be respectful of his rooting interest, because the whole thing we always try to do when we're doing our group bets is we all want to be aligned, right? Like there's nothing worse than having like 4 guys rooting for one thing and then the other guys in the corner were rooting for the other. So my compromise was like, all right, I really thought Green Bay was going to cover. It was one of my favorite bets, but my buddy Derek's like, I don't want to root for any Green Bay points. I want my Niners to win by 1 million. And I was like, all right, let's just do the over. Let's just take the over. It's at like 50.5. I think if the Packers hang in this game, we'll probably get the over. And so it's looking really dicey, right? Green Bay has those drives stalling out, and then we're set up for the overtime script. Anders Carlson just has to make that field goal. Then the Niners go down, score a touchdown, it sends it to overtime. And then I think that would have put it at 48. We had the over at 50.5. And so all we need is that Anders Carlson field goal. And then we're just free rolling it. So we had done like a parlay, which was the under. And and we had ended up doing the Green Bay plus 10.5 as well. So that the 2 field goals were just absolutely heartbreaking across that weekend with Anders and Tyler Bass. Or if you've seen the Photoshops, apparently we're calling him Tyler Ass now. Tyler Ass. Good morning, Angelina. Mac here talking about his advancing Bestball teams or Josh Allen teams. Yeah, I'll pull mine up in a second here as well. Pete, as a Niner fan, you truly are a good friend. Well, it's so funny too, because one of my buddies ended up really wanting to do I think it was just a Tampa Bay money line bet, which I didn't mind. But then some of my other buddies had bet like a favorites parlay for the entire weekend. And so then they were on opposite sides. And I was like, see guys, this is why we need to be aligned. We need to be on the same page. So the rooting interests are the best. My favorite, I'll tell you, my favorite bet of the weekend. So my buddy had, his parents had a place like at this like retirement community type like golf course. And his house was, I would say, like a quarter mile, like 0.25 miles from the clubhouse. And there was a bar in there. And I bet my buddy Cam, I free rolled him. And I said, if you can sprint to the bar, chug a beer, you got to order it, chug a beer and get back in sub 5 minutes, I was like, I'll free roll you $100. And just like the distance alone, I didn't think would be too much of a roadblock. But we had been to the bar earlier and they had this really older, slower, methodical bartender, very good bartender, but just kind of on island time is how I would say it. So I thought my buddy goes in there, if he's preoccupied whatsoever, like he's screwed. Like there's no way he's going to be able to convey the sense of urgency to this guy that he needs to get a beer, chug it, and get out of there as quick as possible. And so he's thinking through his strategy, and his strategy is, I'm going to just go in with a $20 bill and just say, hey, I need a beer as quick as possible, put it down. And I end up going over there to scout the spot because I was going to film him on this. And he ends up running so goddamn pure because we get in there, the place is cleared out. The bartender, it's just like classic in a movie. He's just wiping down the bar, no one around. My buddy Cam runs in, slaps the 20 down, just no issue whatsoever. He ends up doing it in 3 minutes. I set an awful line. I thought 5 minutes with the variability of the bartender being tied up or him, impatiently having to try to like get him to move off of helping someone else. But no, he ran too pure, completed it in like 2:58. So I lost that prop bet there. All right, let's check out some playoff best ball teams. And yeah, so I would say the funnest thing I have going in playoff Bestball is a team I drafted with Easy in the Big Mitten. If you guys are YouTube members, I posted those a couple weeks back. Easy, man, he's my good luck charm because we did DFS After Dark like a month ago, and we ended up getting second in DeBomb for like 4K. And I said, hey, let's keep rolling this over. You want to do a few Big Mitten drafts? So we ended up doing 2 or 3 of those. And now we have a team that is advancing in that. And it's fun because it's a really small structure. So to refresh your memory, this was the $500 entry round. The first round advancement was similar to all the other contests, 2 of 6. Then this week was 1 of 4. Next week is one of 3, and then it's a 6-seat final. So if you make it to the finals, you're guaranteed a $5,000 payout. And I'll show you guys this team here. It is a Mahomes team that has Rashee Rice. It's an interesting thing because we were really debating, do we add a third Chiefs piece? And we're looking at this team in round 1 because it has some Baltimore pieces. And we ended up tacking on Chris Godwin instead of taking another Chiefs player. And this team would not have advanced out of round 1 without Chris Godwin. We kind of broke some of the rules here of Chris Godwin going against our Eagles contingent in round 1, but we really felt like we needed another advancement piece. And boy, has that proved to have been the skeleton key. So I'll read this full team to you. Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, Gus Edwards at running back, wide receivers, George Kittle, Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Odell Beckham, Chris Godwin. So in pretty good spot, we have the 4 dead, which is the 3 Philly and the Godwin. And then we obviously want the Chiefs to win for this team. So we have a quarterback in the Super Bowl. But when you think through like how small these next things are, as far as 1 of 3 and 1 of 6, because we have 2 Baltimore pieces, we're actually, I don't think like dead for even like a 2nd or 3rd place, even without a quarterback. Like if we get a Baltimore, San Francisco, we're still getting CMC, Gus Edwards, George Kittle, and Odell Beckham, which depending on how things shake out and how many times this playoffs have we seen, the lower scoring teams be the teams that advance as far as the real NFL teams. And then the high scoring individuals are getting bounced out. And so you get this funky stuff. So I will be fascinated to see what the pod looks like out of our 1 of 3 here, but I don't want to jinx us, but I got to think we're probably a favorite to advance to the finals with this squad here. Mahomes, McCaffrey, Kittle, Rice, Gus Edwards, Odell Beckham should be a fun one here in the Big Mitten. The team we had drafted over on Ship Chasing, we did this one of the nights during our playoff week. And this was the one that was dead right away because it was a Dak onslaught with all the nice Baltimore pieces. But because the Baltimore and Tampa Bay stuff had been hitting, it actually almost advanced. It was 5 points short of advancing here. And then you look at Mark Andrews 0 here and Zay Flowers at 6. So yeah, you get 5 more points from Zay, or you get an 11-point game from Mark Andrews, and this team could have potentially advanced there, but got the most out of everybody else. Took a 0 at quarterback, but Justice Hill, Rashad White, and Mike Evans almost dragged it as a dead team to the semifinals there. I believe this is crutches. I never know with the Kyle. I'm pretty sure the ambiguous Kyle is crutches. He says it's definitely live to win. Gus is the perfect anti-Lamar piece in the finals. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought that through. If you were going to have a Baltimore piece to kind of sink the Lamar teams, that's exactly who you would want it to be. Yeah, it'll be fun to look at these pods here. But yeah, hopefully Easy and I can end up making a splash in the Big Mitten. In the Gauntlet, I reviewed these last week. I had a decent amount of fun teams here. I do have 2 advancing, and they are both Josh Allen teams, which it sounds like is par for the course. A lot of you guys in the same boat. It is kind of fun to see, the thesis playing out of hitting on the more live players you have, the better chance you have to advance, which I know saying it now seems so painfully obvious, but you watch people draft and they're not actually factoring that in. So you can see I have these labeled here by how many dead players I had going in to the divisional round. This Buffalo, San Francisco, Detroit, 0 dead, advancing. Buffalo, San Francisco, Detroit, 0 dead, advancing. And then I had a KC, Detroit, Buffalo, 0 dead. This is the one that stings because this was, it misses out. It was off by 11, finishes in 3rd, but this was the Mahomes team. So it was Mahomes, Pacheco, Gibbs, Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, Justin Watson, and also has Laporta and Reynolds. So this one would have been really fun to sneak through as kind of a KC Detroit build there, but was not meant to be. I'll show you these two teams that are going to advance, but they're Allen teams. So we are going to be dead here. Pretty fun team around it though. You had Josh Allen, Diggs, and Gabe Davis and Shakir were the Buffalo pieces. And then it had Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, and Jawan Jennings. So hurts to lose that Buffalo team there. And then the other one was very similar, almost an identical team with just a couple of pivots. Allen, McCaffrey, Gibbs, Leonard Fournette, Diggs, Gabe Davis, Kincaid, Jamison Williams, Khalil Shakir, and Ronnie Bell. I failed you guys. I told you if we win the gauntlet with Ronnie Bell, that I was going to buy you guys all Taco Bell. And it wasn't Ronnie Bell's fault. It wasn't Ronnie Bell. Although I will say, it was my guy Chris Conley getting the Ronnie Bell work. I'm over here clicking Ronnie Bell when it was Chris Conley all along. Had that big catch there, looked pretty good. Shout out to Chris Conley, friend of the club, has been on the channel a couple times. Hope he gets a ring. Hope the con man gets a ring. He's had quite the journeyman career. Obviously, I think we all got to know him on the Jags and then bounced around the Texans. I think he was even on another team, right? Somewhere in between there. Now on the Niners. But yeah, Chris Conley is our generation's Ronnie Bell. All right, I think I have a teeny bit. Don't judge me on this coffee pour. Like I already gave you guys one really good coffee pour, but I'm feeling a little parched, want a little more. This one isn't going to be as good. Again, we're under promising and not over delivering. Man, this is like a Mary Poppins carafe of coffee. Every time I think there's nothing else in here, it just keeps vibing. All right. Let's see here. Anything else interesting? So yeah, I mean, I had 17 entries in here in the gauntlet. Had a lot of teams that could still field a full lineup. I basically didn't name any that couldn't field a full lineup with the quarterback. But yeah, so only going to have these two dead teams advancing. And I honestly don't think I have another quarterback team advancing. Big Mitten, that was one we did with some ship chasing guys. Nothing. Let's see. In this one, this was the little gauntlet where only one of 5 advance this round. So this team, which was my one Lamar Jackson team, and it was just 5 live with Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, Zay Flowers, and Isaiah Likely. This one, oh man, look at how, my video box is in the way. Look at how close this was. 68.28 to 69.36. Steel Devil edges me out with a 69.36. So we couldn't get that 5-leg or onslaughted Baltimore team through. That's a bummer. In the gauntlet, I have one team advancing. This is another Buffalo team. Josh Allen, Pacheco, Rashad White. I guess yeah, this team's dead. It only has one KC piece. It does have Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, but it just does not matter. So yeah, bummer there. Anything in the Summit, nothing advancing in the Summit. So yeah, it's really just this easy team. This is the sweat here. As far as my good playoff best ball sweats. Did any of you guys, I haven't been in the Discord much this weekend, so I didn't get to see all of your guys' sweats, your best teams. Do any of you guys have some juggernauts here headed into the conference championship weekend? Yes, he was drafted by the Chiefs. Well, I remember Chris Conley, like as a prospect, he was a guy we all got hyped on because he could just jump out of the gym. I think he had one of the highest vertical leaps in his draft class. And he, like his early career, it's so funny thinking about like the Chris Conley career arc, because if young Chris Conley was how we thought about like the Sky Moores and all of these other disappointing young wide receivers on the Chiefs. Like that's how we used to think about Chris Conley, because we had such high hopes, and it was like, this dude is an athletic freak and he's going to play with Patrick Mahomes, blast off, right? And it didn't ever pan out. And then he like matured into this sure-handed route running, journeyman wide receiver as his career progressed, to the point where the Niners are relying on him to make huge third down catches in the divisional round. So pretty interesting trajectory there for our guy, Chris Conley. Kyle's got a Lamar CMC nutty one, but just praying for pod luck. Yeah, those Lamar CMC combos sound pretty fun right about now. Teabagging time. Did we overvalue the later rounds because of the size of that round? Lots of dead teams make it more likely than we assumed. Honestly, I don't think you can read too much into it based on some of the quirks of how it worked. Like I said, with round 1 having so many Cowboys and Rams pieces advancing, round 2 having so many Bills pieces advancing, sometimes it just breaks in a way where it's essentially impossible for a lot of full lineups to advance the way the scores work. And we talked about it last week. And if some of you guys had some really good ideas of ways you would tweak the format, we were kind of spitballing that last week. If you want to go through the comments on last week's video, there's a couple really good suggestions there. One of the ones I really liked that was kind of fun. And again, I'm still saying this as someone who likes the format as is. I don't think it needs to be changed, but I was trying to think through it through the lens of people who aren't sickos like us, who aren't thinking about this all the time, and just kind of the user experience of playing this contest and then showing up with an advancing team that's dead on arrival. But that said, someone had a suggestion that was, you basically have round 1 and round 2 kind of lumped together, and then you use the best score from those 2 players. So basically it would reward the winning team by giving you a second crack to outpace it. So it would basically be like, yes, Puka Nacua goes nuts in round 1, but if you had, let's say Josh Reynolds, like Josh Reynolds didn't end up eclipsing Puka in 2 games or having an extra score, but if he did, you basically get a second crack at it. And I thought that was kind of an elegant solution, because the highest scoring like nuke weeks, even from losing players, is still probably going to be enough to hold, but it just slightly rewards the advancing team. But I don't think there's an elegant solution to it, especially from like a sweating perspective and all of that. I mean, it is still pretty clean. You either advance or you don't. You get the randomized pods, and then you get to see how you're faring again starting at scratch. I personally like it, but I understand when the bracket breaks in a way like it has this year, it leads to a ton of chaos. And I mean, if we get Niners and Ravens in the Super Bowl, I mean, there are going to be some hilarious teams in there, because you will not only have had the Buffalo stuff, the Dallas stuff from round 1, but then you have the 2 bye week teams that were hard to get through as is. So if we do get that Super Bowl, I will be fascinated to see what some of those teams look like in there. Doans, what do you think the actual percentage to advance will be due to dead lineups? I.e., do you think 1 of 10s will end up really being 1 of 6 or 1? Yeah. And it's tough, because just because you can't field a full team doesn't mean you're dead. I mean, if you show up in one of the 450 person finals, yes. But like, again, like we were saying, in some of these smaller finals, I think you would maybe be able to survive it, especially if you get a big skill position. Like if you get one, if Zay Flowers goes for 25 and Lamar and Purdy in the Super Bowl are each like sub 20, it's not that outlandish, because at that point you are just talking raw points. And I do think there could be some scenarios where there could be some decent teams that don't have the quarterback or can't fill a full starting lineup. Obviously, if you're going to have a dead lineup, you'd still want to be able to start a quarterback. But you could probably get away with not having it if you just have the right pieces and you capture the 2 to 3 highest scoring players in that game. I think it's certainly possible. Have several teams with 4 of 5 Chiefs in San Francisco, guys. And this is why I really think we're headed, you know, the smart money, the betting markets, everything is on a Niners and Ravens Super Bowl. But I'm assuming most of the teams showing up are going to be Mahomes teams, just based on what I've seen. It sounds like a few of you guys have some Lamar teams that are skirting by. Are your guys' Lamar teams that are getting through? Are those Lamar, Jared Goff? I feel like those were the screenshots I saw. I'm trying to think like what ended up being the optimal QB pairing with Lamar. Maybe a Baker, because you got 2 really good games out of Baker. I could see that. Like if you had the Baker, even just like a Baker Rashad White could have probably carried you a decent bit covering some of the buys for the Ravens. Copper says his auto-drafted Big Mitten is still alive. What do they say, Copper? Better to be lucky than good? GG, man. GG. JGFC has a Lamar Stroud. Okay. I can see that. Luke's got Baker with it. Mac has a Lamar Love with a Monrod Gibbs and other Lions. Lamar Stroud. Yeah, this is what I was thinking, that a lot of teams will be 49er KC team, CMC, then KC stack at the 2-3 turn. That was a very comfy, click there for, and it was even the vice versa, right? Like if you took the double tap the Niners at the 1-2 turn, you know, you did the Kittle Ayuk, or maybe you got the Debo Ayuk, then you come back, and you could still get some of the Chiefs pieces there as well. GA, most of my Lamar teams were Love and Detroit players and some Green Bay players. Purdy, Mahomes. Yeah, we had, I think that team, where's the other team I was going to look at? Yeah, this was the team we had advanced. We had one team that narrowly missed. That was a Dak Lamar team in the Big Mitten. But this team was just a dead Dak Prescott team there. It's also interesting, too, just to think about how I was talking with Easy about our team here, too. Another thing that is could be interesting if Debo doesn't play. Like, we have George Kittle in CMC. I mean, obviously, George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk end up being kind of the biggest beneficiaries when Debo is out. But, man, like, George Kittle, he kind of has that, like, Evan Ingram syndrome to a bit, where it's just like, you can't expect a lot from him when everyone's healthy, but the second you remove one piece from that offense, then all of a sudden the path to the ceiling really opens up. So as far as from an entertainment standpoint, I'm very much rooting for Debo to be active, because I think that just makes that game so much funner. But for this specific team, not having Debo would not be the worst thing. I guess you're probably not going to see a lot of those teams anyways, right? Like a lot of those Debo Ayuk teams I was talking about, those are probably dying on the vine. And then the CMC Kittle stuff ends up being optimal, where you take CMC and then Kittle comes back around to you. And then those are the two that go off in this round. That's why there's still so much randomness to how the ADP correlates to the performances and how you advance and how many kind of like landmines you're really having to dodge as you go through. Max says, with Debo out, my Jawan Jennings teams are coming through, right? How hilarious was that? Was it to start the second half, right? Debo was out. In the very first play is a jet sweep to Jawan Jennings. And it was like Kyle Shanahan was just in denial that Debo Samuel was out. He's like, I'm not changing the playbook. It's just Jawan Jennings is our new Debo Samuel, which doesn't seem like a great strategy. I hope as the Niners are preparing for the Lions this week, that they aren't working under the assumption that Jawan Jennings can do for them what Debo Samuel does. But that's how it started in that game. Kevin says, I'm a newbie to Bestball. What makes the team dead? So what makes it dead is, the way we're referring to it, is if you can't field a starting lineup. So every team has 10 spots, and the starting lineup is 5 spots: a quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers / tight ends, and a flex. That could be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. So we're saying if you can't field 5 guys, which means your team doesn't have at least 5 players from, in total, Detroit, San Francisco, KC, Baltimore, that team is dead, because as we get to these bigger pods and these tougher groupings to advance, you're going to need to have scores from all 5 of your starting lineup spots. But what we're kind of talking about is in some of these smaller contests, you might be able to get by without a full starting lineup, specifically in the finals pods, if we get a Niners Ravens and there's just so few teams that can actually field a starting lineup. Copper says, think 2 to 3 live guys can win the Big Mitten. I think it all comes down to, I think if the Chiefs or the Lions win, I don't think so. I think you're going to need a full starting lineup, but if it's Ravens, Niners, I could see 2 to 3 live guys winning it based on the pots. I mean, there's only going to be 6 teams in that final, and depending on how the scores work this week, it just might not break in a way where you're getting, even 3 teams that have a full lineup. I did not do any of the second chance playoff best ball stuff. I mean, I was just full Jimmy Butler meme there, exhausted. I saw a bunch of you guys blasting off, and the mitten returns, the return of the big mitten 49. But I directed all of my efforts to Battle Royales this week, and just kept my action to everything that we did before the playoffs locked here. Yeah, so I did see, I mentioned this before, ton of contests here for the Sunday knockout QB sneak, a $250 single entry. That's almost full. Goodness. The extra point here. Should I hop in this last one before I go? Anyone want to do this? All right. It's a 3-person draft. All right, let's talk it through. I have not looked at the ranks. I have not looked at this slate whatsoever. So you guys can be my Sherpa. Let's talk this through. So we got the 1-2. So the first question is, do you go Lamar or Amon-Ra? Like, are you okay? Man, the 1-2 is actually kind of gross, because Amon-Ra versus San Fran. Because you have to really think, I guess, if there's 3 quarterbacks that go, I'm okay. I'm very much okay with Purdy versus Detroit. Yep. I'm with Tyler there. Yeah, I think I'm with you guys. ARS B2. Yeah, I would not expect Lamar to come back. I'm just trying to think through, looking at the wide receiver depth here. Isn't it funny that just straight up projections, because this isn't ADP loaded in here for these 3-person drafts. There's not ADP. That Christian McCaffrey just out projects. Yeah, let's do Amon-Ra. And then that kind of opens us up to 2 of the quarterback plays, of basically getting to decide Brock or Goff, right? Like, we can end up stacking Goff with Amon-Ra. Lamar goes. And because I don't really think Mahomes is even meaningfully better than Brock in this spot. So then the next question is, do we go? So Pacheco goes. To me, this is Ayuk here again, right? Like, if we're assuming no Debo, I think Ayuk is pretty interesting, unless we're trying to lock up the tight end. But I feel like we have a pretty deep tight end thing. I think it's Ayuk, right? Does anyone have any other takes on other than Ayuk? I think we go Ayuk. So we start Amon-Ra in Ayuk, because now we have outs to both quarterbacks, right? And then hopefully Robin just picks one of the quarterbacks here, and then we don't have to worry about any other quarterback selections. Well, this is why the Lamar pick is okay. He goes Purdy, so now we're locked into. I mean, we can take Goff or Mahomes. So now this is where we got to think this through. I think we go Rashee Rice, right? We go Rashee Rice, and then, or do we go Kelsey? Because then we lock up the tight end. We lock up the tight end and then then we get to choose which one do we want to stack up. Probably Mahomes with Kelsey or Goff. I think Kelsey's optimal here. Because quarterback's our last pick now. No one else is there. Everyone else is done at. So we got Amon-Ra, Ayuk, and Kelsey. And this is only a 48 entry contest. So I don't really think there needs to be much gal braining here. So Elam Raider does go Rice. The other thing is, do we exploit the Q tag here with Debo, right? Because we can get the swap. That's the other thing to kind of consider. Gibbs goes. To me now, this is pretty flat at running back. So the question is, do we go Zay or do we exploit the Q tag with Debo? I think it's probably Zay. I like Zay better than Laporta as a flex. So we grab Zay here, and now we just have to think through the running back. Do we go for like the leverage angle with Gus? And thinking like if the Lamar teams aren't getting there, I think we have to go Mahomes, right? I don't really want to play Goff against San Francisco. We can just play that through Amon-Ra. And then we play Mahomes, and then it's picking a running back. I think it comes down to Gus or Justice Hill. Yeah, Mahomes is already locked, but he will be our last pick. So it's figuring out who our running back is. It's Gus or Hill. I think Gus is probably GTO, right? We passed on Lamar. The Lamar teams are something we're worried about. If Gus is vulturing in the Chiefs defense, it also kind of ties with the game script. If we're getting Patrick Mahomes chucking a ton. I love Justice Hill, but I think on this team, all right, I get to punt the decision for a little bit longer because he's already done it running back. I'm going to take Mahomes, even though I don't have to, just to have a few more seconds to think out Gus versus Justice Hill. Okay, the chat, Casey was on the hill, but you guys are kind of swinging me. Like, all I need is a slight nudge because I prefer Justice Hill in general. I'm just trying to think through for this specific team for playing for the shootout Hill. I think I got to go with my guy. I mean, my hot take last week was Justice Hill was going to turn into our generation's playoff Lenny, playoff McKinnon. Usage was pretty good. 13 attempts, 2 receptions. Play it as a faster paced game. I just don't like Detroit on the Monty on the road at San Francisco there. I think I'm going to go with Hill. All right. There it is. Thank you guys for talking me through this on my first draft here. Yeah, Hill, Flowers, Kelsey, Mahomes shootout. Yeah, and I like this being kind of like concentrated on this game. So the final team here, and now I got to run and go do XM. Patrick Mahomes to Kelsey, double bring back Justice Hill and Zay Flowers, and then mini here, Amon-Ra and Brandon Ayuk. I like that. I think that's pretty fun. I think I would have liked to have gotten Purdy, and that would probably have sent me on a different trajectory. But that one was fun. All right. Appreciate you guys. I got to go do XM. I got to huddle with Clay. I think we're going to try to spin up the club. It'd be fun to talk about Gil shootout although maybe Jack and Jennings don't want to talk about their performance. But I think we're going to fire up a club here this afternoon at 3:30, so you can keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, I will catch you guys around town, around the Discord. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon.